allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting has been noticed in compliance with the South Carolina Free Decision-Making Authority on certificates of historic appropriateness. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Melanie Millar. I am the chair of the commission. And to my left, excuse me, to my left we have Pat Sullivan. To my right, Anna Johnson, English Purcell, Michael Walsh, and Donna Gardner. Also seated to my right is Commission Attorney Mark Bell, and to my left is Joel Evans, Director of Zoning and Planning. Joel, would you please introduce your staff?
Sure. Andrea Melisick, the Deputy Director, is here. Also, Monica Eustace and Emily Piggott. She'll be doing some of the cases and the training. Monica will also be doing a case.
Very much. So as stated, this is a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness for a new single-family 16 CHA applications for properties within the district have been received. The 10-mile community was designated as a Charleston County Historic District in June of 2022. In August of 2023, the subject parcel's current boundaries were recorded via a plat subdividing the parent parcel into 3 lots. This application was deferred by the Commission at their February 21st, 2024 meeting. At that meeting, the Commission recommended the applicant make the following changes to their proposal. 1, move the house closer to the center of the lot. 2, reduce the overall height and mass of the house to be more reflective of the community. 3, switch the pavement driveway to an impervious surface. And 4, remove the drive under and front-facing garage bays. In response to those comments, the applicant made the following changes. 1, they moved the house further back and towards the center of the lot. 2, they reduced the height of the home by 1 story. 3, they converted the driveway to gravel. And 4, they removed the drive under and front-facing garage. The applicant has described their proposal as a 2-story, 2,190 square foot single-family home with a lot coverage of 5.6%. They describe the style as featuring low country characteristics. Here's the location of the subject property when we're looking at the county as a whole. Here's a map of the 10-mile historic district showing the location of the subject property off of Abe White Road. The 10-mile community was recognized in the 2016 Charleston County Cultural Resources Survey update as a remnant freedmen community having significant social organization and settlement patterns. The subject property, actually prior to this, was zoned a low-density residential R4, but now it's zoned S3 with the new rezoning and is currently undeveloped. The future land use designation is Urban Suburban Cultural Community Protection. Properties to the west, east, north, and south are also zoned S3 and contain single-family dwelling units or are undeveloped. And the subject property is in the AE11 flood zone. So here's an aerial view of the subject property. These are photos of the subject property and surrounding properties on Abe White and Gadsdenville roads. Here is the revised site plan that shows the home and the gravel back and more towards the center of the lot and has a slightly different building footprint. Also, the driveway has been converted from asphalt to gravel. So here are the front and rear elevations of the proposed home. This is a comparison between the previously proposed front elevation and the currently proposed front elevation. This is the right elevation and the left elevation. And the applicant did provide responses to all of the applicable approval criteria. Based on the applicant's responses, the approval criteria may have been satisfied. Therefore, staff recommends approval. Prior to the February 21st HPC meeting, 22 letters in opposition, and a petition with 90 signatures opposing the request was received. We did receive 7 additional letters in opposition prior to the HPC meeting in April, and another 4 in opposition were received prior to today's meeting. And we did notice as
Emily, for your comprehensive report. At this time, are there any questions for staff or from commission members? Okay, just a moment.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm not sure who had their hand up first.
Go. The letters in opposition, did the folks writing those letters, or did the community in general get a chance to see the revised plan? They
yes,
did.
sir. They specifically were commenting on the revised proposal.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
So, well, in reference to the letters, I was just wondering, since they have, the community has been aware of the changes, they are still in opposition?
That is correct, based on the input that we have received.
Okay. And regarding the property, it looks like you were showing that there were 2 other lots behind this piece of property on that same, yeah. So is there a road going to the back to those 2 other?
Yes. So Abe White Road is the road that these
Oh,
lots
I
utilize
see.
to
I see what
access.
it is. I'm looking at the other side.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a flag lot, but they don't utilize that access off of Gadsdenville currently.
Okay, that's what I wanted, clarification.
of course.
Thank you.
Yes, Pat?
Question for staff. If 90-plus residents said that they don't want this, how do you take that into account and still recommend approval?
Yeah, so the 90 signatures were on the previous proposal, on the proposal that was reviewed by the commission and deferred. So they weren't commenting on this proposed plan. The only letters that we've received are the 7 and the additional 4 today that are commenting on this plan.
So how do you take those into account?
They're noted for your consideration by the commission.
So y'all don't take them into consideration in your recommendations?
We have to make recommendations based on the approval criteria.
Okay.
Hello, welcome. We're just getting a little caught up, if you would, just like, we're making, just having whether there's any comments to staff about the proposal at hand right here. I'll give you just a minute to get. Is there anyone else that might like to ask any questions before we open this for comment? Yes.
So, okay, just to clarify one more time. So there were 90 letters opposing the original plans, and there were only maybe 7 opposing the updated plans.
So, yeah, so
Is
the
that
letters, the 22
signatures?
letters and the 90 signatures, that all came in under the previous proposal. And then the 7 letters and the 4 additional letters, so 11 letters have been in
11.
comments on the current proposal that you're reviewing today.
Thank you.
Of course.
Ms. Purcell, that was signatures, 90 signatures, not letters, I think that's. Anyone else have any comment or question? So my understanding is that all 4 of the recommendations were met, is that correct?
The applicant did
by the
address
applicant.
each of the recommendations.
Okay, well, at this point, I guess we are going to hear, is there public comment on this particular?
Yes, the applicant, Bradley Lipsmeyer, signed up to speak.
Mr. Lipsar, should we just give your name and your address, please? And your-
Yes, ma'am. It's Bradley Lipsmeyer, and it's on my work address.
Just your proper, yeah, your work address would be
Okay,
fine.
1814 Crown Commons Way, Johns Island, 29455.
Okay,
Thanks for letting me speak today. As what was already previously addressed, we have addressed all of the requirements that staff proposed on the, I believe it was March meeting. And for 3858 Abe White specifically, like was said, we have dropped that down to a two-story building. Homes have been pushed back away from the street and more centered in on the lot. And we've also taken away the concrete driveway and allow for a gravel driveway and 2 additional parking spaces in that driveway. And if I can recall correctly, there were some issues, I believe, in the first meeting on drainage and stormwater requirements, and those have all been already approved by Charleston County plans and engineering. And that's basically all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, is there any other discussion? I know that at this point, we have other, I think.
Yep.
speakers.
Craig Askew? Yes. Did you sign up to speak on this?
Okay. 2 people.
Pearl and
Okay, 3.
3.
Good afternoon. My name is Craig Askew. I live at 987 Gadsdenville Road. That's in 10 Mile on South Carolina. I thank you all for being here again and listening to us and our concerns about the historic community of 10 Mile. That property on A. White Road, there was a trailer there. When I was growing up, there was a trailer there. And I would recall Mr. Abe White and his son. His son went to the Marine Corps when I was in like middle school. And later, much later on, as I became an adult and moved back home, there was the property had traded hands, and there was a storage lot there for equipment, tractor equipment, not backhoes, but excavators and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, now we're here today, and it's got a request for homes on it. So fast forward to right now. These homes are not consistent, even though they've made changes. They're not consistent with the character of the settlement community. And I know y'all are sick of hearing me say this, but it's the home is wider, almost takes up the whole lot. The average home in settlement communities do not take up the whole lot like that. We've done letters of petition and pointed out very specifically in email, based on the changes, very specifically in email, why it doesn't meet the historic designation we feel like 10 Mile needs. I'm not going to bore you or belabor with anything else, but that's the basic, the basics of what it just doesn't demonstrate the consistency and prevailing patterns of existing lot sizes and homes in 10 Mile. It looks much more like homes on Lieben Road, which is a neighboring community to us, but not 10 Mile. To be even more specific, it's predominant with other subdivisions, like I said, on Lieben Road, but not the rural characteristic of 10 Mile. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pearl Askew and Mira Richardson.
Bueno.
Oh, Myra Richardson, sorry.
Good evening, and thank you for having us to speak again. Pearl Askew, 977 Gadsdenville Road. In conjunction with what was just said, I don't think this is on, is it? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Anyways, on A. White Road, the homes that was shown, the house that was shown, it's totally, absolutely different. I believe that house is a 2,900 square foot compared to about what, a 1,200 or 1,500 square foot house that's already there in that area. And what's going to occur is with these houses coming in on Gadsdenville Road and on Abe White Road, it's just going to change what we call the character of the community. And if this continues, we'll have a different type of historical settlement community. It will not be in conjunction with what the homes was even up to 50 years ago. And I understand what the staff is saying, but it's critical to us in these settlement black communities that we try to keep the character. And definitely that on this particular parcel, it will definitely change it. Hopefully we'll see better in the future with the bigger lots. Hopefully we'll come to that realization. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Myra Richardson. My address is 2755 Earl Johnson Lane in the settlement community of Hamlin Beach. I am here with the 10-mile community and discussing the fact that these homes do not fit the characteristics of our settlement communities. As listening to the landowner, he said these homes have been placed set back. So if we're discussing one home, I've driven down that road before, and it was one mobile home on one huge lot. The way it looks now, that lot has been divided into three lots. And by him saying homes on these lots, you have one home in front of you. But if this is approved, you're opening up Pandora's box. I've said it before. Because this applicant, more than likely, probably is coming back with two other homes for the other two lots. That's going to be huge. That changes up everything about this neighborhood. So we're asking you to look at that and look forward to what's coming next. Because if you approve these things in the settlement communities, it's going to continue to happen in the settlement communities because that lot, if I'm not mistaken, has been divided into three lots. So what stopped this applicant from coming back for the other two homes on the other two lots with the same structure, the same style that does not represent what the settlement community have already in place? So take in consideration that fact, what happens with the other two lots? And how will this affect the rest of this community and honestly the rest of all the settlement communities? Because once it's set in stone, anyone can come to you and say, this is what we need, and you did it on Abe White Road. So why can't you have it in Hamlin, in Snowden, and any of the other communities? Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for speakers.
This case is now closed to public comment. I have a question, Emily, on this, before we go into any motions. On this particular lot, can you pull that picture up again where it has the two lots behind? The aerial view? Yeah. So am I to understand that these two lots in the back are also owned by the same gentleman or the same developer?
That's correct.
Okay. And I know that somewhere in this information that you could probably tell me what the size of the lot is noted. What is the size of this particular lot that's being built, being requested for building?
I would have to look at
Okay.
the case history, which you all have in
Okay, that's
front of
okay.
you.
I just thought maybe
apologize.
you had that information right there in front of you.
Let me see. Actually, I think I have it on my first slide. There we go. 0.63 acres.
0.63? Mm-hmm. And then the lots obviously behind are much smaller, maybe half that size. I'm looking at
They're
that.
0.25.
0.25, okay. Does seem like a large house for that particular size lot, as far as in the back, but a third of an acre is a large lot. So the ones in the back, I see definite difference. Thank you. That's all I have.
Of course.
Any other discussion or
I have a question. What is the lot coverage?
5.6%.
5.6%?
Yes, sir.
And did I catch the square footage of the home as 2190
20.
right
Yes,
there?
sir.
Refresh my memory, I was looking back over the ACA for 10 Mile, and how does that compare to the averages that come from the ACA?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
I think I recall that the houses ranged up to 2,000 square feet. And I think the lot coverage was about what this is. Does anybody else remember that?
I don't.
Well, let me go further. I think we're here in the same situation we've been in before. And that is that this applicant has come to us before. We have made specific recommendations. He has complied with all the recommendations. And if we don't approve this, we are again moving goalposts. And that's just something I can't see being fair. I also would, I wish when the folks from the community spoke to us, they would give us a little bit more idea of what they would find acceptable on this lot. I think I heard that the homes in 10 Mile are generally narrower and longer. Is that correct? Can somebody tell me if that's correct?
You'd like to refer to the area character appraisal. These homes are tract-built homes, but you have to refer to the area character. Thank you very much.
From my understanding and being out there myself, I've seen, mainly ranch-style homes, but there are several two-story homes that are fairly large out there. So, but they are on bigger lots. Okay, so there's, that part of it as well. I did spend a lot of time in the community. It's a beautiful community. And I understand, that this is a new home with a new style vibe. I understand that. But I agree with you, Michael, that this applicant has met the recommendations that we made, and I have a hard time not following through with our part. I think the size of the property, in my opinion, is large enough to, support a home like this. Again, my opinion. Ms. Jones? Excuse me, Ms. Sullivan?
Okay, I'd like to start by referring back to what is in the comprehensive plan. CR3. It says, work with communities within the Gullah Geechee corridor to establish ways to protect settlement patterns and community character. If we approve this, we are not protecting the character of the 10 Mile community. I think it's pretty clear based on the letters we've received previously and the letters received this time, and the people who are here today, they don't want this house here. I think it creates a precedent. If you look at this neighborhood, I have driven around the neighborhood. We were provided photographs of houses in the neighborhood that look nothing. They look nothing like this. They're not the size of this. I think we are doing 10 Mile a disservice if we approve it, and I will be voting against it. We are supposed to keep the character of this community, and approving something that looks like this that could easily go in another brand-new community in Mount Pleasant, fine, maybe Isle of Palms, whatever, but it doesn't look like something that belongs here. Also, if you read the ADA, their square footage is not, their typical square footage is not the size of this. So my notes to myself say that I would say no, based on the Secretary of Interior standards, that it does not complement the surrounding homes or the surrounding neighborhood. That's B. Or C, does not demonstrate consistency with prevailing patterns of existing lots, shapes, designs. It does not fit the low country characteristic of the 10 Mile community. It looks like it was designed by a developer. It does not look like it was built, designed and built by some of the people who live in 10 Mile. So I can appreciate that the developer wants to build a house here. He wants to make a lot of money on this house. The value of this house, if it gets built, will far supersede the value of the typical house in the 10 Mile community. So if we approve this, we are doing a grave disservice to 10 Mile. Those are my, I can say more, but I'll stop.
Yes.
Did you want? Okay.
Go ahead, Ms.
I just want to say that I agree with Ms. Sullivan, and we are supposed to be protecting the Gullah Geechee communities. And we are still getting letters saying that people are in opposition because they don't feel that this home is fitting the character of the community. Instead, it's changing the character of the community. And that's not why they came into the historic preservation to begin with. So I have to agree, I cannot support this either. Moving forward, thank you.
Anyone else have a
Yeah.
comment?
Here's the problem I have with what Commissioner Sullivan has said. I agree with the mission, as you've stated it, of this commission. I want to do that, but we should have taken a different tack with this applicant in the first place. I've only been on this commission for what, a little over a year now, I guess. And I have, correct me if I'm wrong, and don't take this wrong, don't take this as a pejorative statement at all, but have we seen any property in 10 Mile that has come before us that was supported by the community? I can't recall any. So I don't know what anybody can do to build a new place in this community that would meet the approval of the community. But what we should have said to this applicant, rather than move the house, change the driveway, lower the house, is go back to the ACA, look at the characteristics in 10 Mile community, and bring us something that more fits the style that's already there. But we didn't say that. We made specific recommendations, and he has fulfilled all of those. That's where I have to stop.
Ms. Sullivan? Hold on, Ms. Sullivan asked real quickly.
So, okay, I hear you. But what do we say to the next developer who comes in and says, well, you approved that, you better approve mine, it's just like that one.
I couldn't agree more, but we should have thought of that before.
But we're here, we're here.
Ms. Johnson, did you have a comment?
I guess it's pretty much still saying the same thing in objection, so can we call for the vote? I'd like to make a motion, please.
Make a motion?
I would like to make a motion to disapprove of the recommendation here,
In your basis,
because it does not meet the character of the community, and That's one of our main objections. And also, we need to protect the historical community. That's why we have this commission. And I don't feel like we would be doing that if we supported this, because the door is going to be open. So mistake was made in the recommendation of all of these changes. I don't recall being a part of that, but we can't open the door. So my motion is to not approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion, and a second has been made to disapprove this development, this building. If there's no other, just further discussion, I think it's time to vote.
Chair Millar,
Nay.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner, Commissioner Purcell,
Nay.
Commissioner Sullivan,
This is a vote to approve.
to disapprove.
I vote to disapprove, sorry, yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Nay.
the ayes have it.
Okay, this is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any person with a substantial interest in this decision of the Historic Preservation Commission chooses to appeal the decision, you may do so to the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Such appeal shall be filed within 30 calendar days after today's date. Yes?
I think you correctly disapproved.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And again, you have the right to appeal. Thank you for your time. The next agenda item is HIST 12-23-0015, a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness. Emily, would you please discuss?
All right, thank you very much. So this request is also for a new single-family dwelling unit, TMS 614-0000-768, also known as 3864 Abe White Road, which is a property within the 10-Mile Community Historic District. Since the designation of the 10-Mile community as a historic district, 16 CHA applications for properties within the district have been received. The 10-Mile community was designated as a Charleston County Historic District in June of 2022. In August of 2023, the subject parcel's current boundaries were recorded via a plat, subdividing the parent parcel into 3 lots. This application was deferred by the Commission at their February 21st, 2024 meeting. The Commission supported the staff's recommendations for design changes to the plan, which were the following. 1, break up the massing of the structure. 2, place the home further back on the lot. 3, lower the elevation of the proposed home to the minimum required by building code. And 4, change the proposed driveway material from concrete to earth or gravel. The applicant responded to the Commission's comments by making the following changes. 1, they made design changes to address massing. 2, they placed the home further back on the lot. 3, they lowered the height of the home by 13 feet. And 4, they converted the driveway to gravel. So the applicant's proposing to construct a new 2,024 square foot, 1.5 story single-family home with a lot coverage of 13%. Here's the location when looking at the county as a whole. And this shows a map of the 10-Mile community with the subject property off of Abe White Road. The 10-Mile community was recognized in the 2016 Charleston County Cultural Resources Survey update as a remnant freedmen community having significant social organization and settlement patterns. As stated previously, the subject property was recently rezoned from low-density R4 to S3 and is undeveloped. The future land use designation is urban, suburban, cultural community protection. Properties to the west, east, north, and south are also now zoned S3 and contain single-family dwelling units or are undeveloped. And the subject property is in the AE11 flood zone. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. These are photos of the subject property, as well as surrounding properties on Abe White Road. This is the proposed site plan, which shows the home. The building footprint is 1,470 square feet of impervious surface, which translates to 13% lot coverage. Here's a comparison between the previously approved site plan and the current site plan. So you can see the footprint of the home has been modified. The home is further back off the Abe White Road, and the driveway has been converted to gravel. Here is the front elevation of the proposed home. This is a comparison between the previously proposed front elevation and the current front elevation, along with the rear, left side elevation, and right side. And the applicant did provide responses to all of the applicable approval criteria. And based on the applicant's responses, the approval criteria may have been satisfied. Therefore, staff recommends approval. So prior to February's meeting, which again was the initial proposal, that was 21 letters in opposition and a petition with 91 signatures opposing the request was received. So prior to the April meeting, we received 7 additional letters, and 2 more letters were received today. So those last 9 are commenting on the current proposal in front of you. And we did notice as required. Thanks.
Thank you, Emily. Are you at liberty to tell us if there was a general consensus on those letters? I mean, as far as an overall, I know we had the opportunity to read them, but I'm just asking, is there something in there specifically that was stated several times, in your opinion?
Yeah, so the most recently received letters asked the commission to refer to the previously submitted comments, and they said that homes in the community are typically wider than they are deep.
They're typically wider than they are deep. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I had that. Okay. All right. We'll now hear public comment unless there's any discussion first for the commission, from the commission to staff. Public comment?
Bradley Lipsmeyer.
Hello again. Bradley Lipsmeyer. As Ms. Piggott has already said, we've made all the changes, just like our previous submission. At this point, we don't know what else to do. You know, I understand that there is a character and a culture and a history in this area, in this community. What exactly that character is, we haven't found out. As you can see with this home, we've completely changed it. It's not even the same home anymore. It's 1.5 stories, gravel road. You know, it's not a frontage. There's no garage. There's no elevation to it. And as to the house being wider than it is longer, obviously that's not the case with this house. But what is typically wider than it is longer? Sure, I bet there are houses in that area that are wider than they are longer, but I'm sure that there are houses that are square. I'm sure that there are some that are longer than are wider. You know, we did what we could do to fit a house on that lot, and we did that also taking into account the staff's recommendations, which we succeeded. So at this point, that's all I have left to say, and thanks again.
Could I ask a question of the applicant? Sure. So, when you develop these projects,
Yes, sir.
do you look at the area character assessment, the ACA, that's been done in 10 Mile?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. That's all I needed to know.
I want to make sure he knows what you're referring to when you say the ACA. That was about 200-page document.
So I specifically do not read this.
Oh, so you didn't read it?
I do not, no. I do not read this document. I am here in lieu of the applicant, Mark Lipsmeyer.
Are you saying that someone else has read this document, though, and given you recommendation?
We take the recommendations of what the staff gives us based on our previous entries.
Are you aware of that there was an area character appraisal, area character analysis of the neighborhood, and there's a document that goes along with that? I think the original question was, have you seen that document?
Seen it.
I personally have not seen it.
Has anyone on your staff seen it?
Yes,
Okay,
That's what I was.
okay.
yes.
I think that's what,
Okay.
I think the original question was, were you aware of one and was it utilized in some way?
Okay, yes,
Yes,
sir, yes.
okay.
I'm aware of it. I personally have not seen it. I'm here in lieu of the applicant,
Okay,
which him and staff have reviewed.
So, sir, just for the future, now you know that there's a area character appraisal, which is a 200-page document created by the 10 Mile community, which gives a very good summary of the lot sizes, the house sizes, the designs of the house, the roofs, how much, where they're situated on the lot, and the streets, and so on and so on. It's very detailed and extensive. And if you come back with another house somewhere else in 10 Mile, I'd highly recommend that whoever designs the house read that, and then you'll bring us something that we will be favorable towards.
Yes, ma'am. I certainly agree with what you're saying. However, if that was the case, like Mr. Walsh had said earlier, if that was the case on when we first brought these two applications to you back in February, why wasn't that stated instead of giving us specific requirements to make it possibly to approve this application and the previous application?
I think this is a good comment, and I think our commission needs to take that in consideration in the future.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
What do you got?
Craig Askew, Pearl Askew, and Myra Richardson.
Craig Askew again, 987 Jacksonville Road, Owendale, South Carolina. Same lot, same applicant. I oppose. The original lot size of 1.12 acres is aligned to the community and is subdivided. The average lot size in our community is 1 acre. The site plan shows the road is gravel. There might be gravel on the other sections of the road, but in general, we have dirt roads. Again, it just doesn't fit. There are a lot of technical parts to it. It doesn't fit the area. It doesn't fit the character of the average homes in 10 Mile. The building coverage would be 25%, which is more than twice the average for the historic district. And that's very important. That's one very important piece. The lot coverage, and the building coverage would be much higher than most lots in the historic district. Thank you.
And Pearl Askew and Myra Richardson.
Good evening again. Pearl Askew, 977 Gastonville Road. Because the settlement communities are so unique to Charleston County, I'm believing that it may be more taskful for developers to come in and actually, gather the information and do what will continue to have the character of the community not distorted. That said, even with the 3 subdivisions that's there, prior to us becoming a historical district, it's the whole community looks like another community that was started from scratch, that was not there even 50 years ago, even less than 100 years ago. The buildings, it's just so distortful. And to us, as African American and the settlement communities, this is what we are trying to curtail, and I'm thinking that Charleston County is trying to help us as best they could. The house just doesn't fit on a white road. The house in the front, the house is on the side, the house in the front, it just doesn't fit. The lot sizers are the bigger house, the biggest house we have is like 1 acre, a half acre, or 0.75. There are bigger homes there, but they're just on bigger lots. And that's just the character of African American settlement communities. And that's if there's going to change, then it's destroyed on what we are trying to preserve. Thank you.
Thank you again for allowing me to speak. My name is Myra Richardson, 2755 Earl Johnson Lane, Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. I'm in the Hamlin Beach settlement community of Hamlin Beach. I would like to thank Ms. Sullivan for asking the follow-up questions and also making a statement that if you read the ACA, it tells what the characteristic of this neighborhood is, and it's already protected. Even with the staff, when they went to review and told the applicant about making changes, those changes still did not fit what has already been approved. And if you allow this to happen, even though that guideline wasn't followed when they recommended or suggested he change things, you still have to go back to what has already been approved. So mistakes were made, and we're learning. This is a learning curve for everybody. So continue on doing what is already detailed and outlined in this protection for us. So if you have it already written down to protect us and you go against what you have written down to protect us, there's no protection for us. So once again, please refer back to the ACA and continue to stick by the ACA. And we won't have this issue to come up or any issue in any of the other settlement communities that are protected and that are trying to get protected. Thank you.
That's it for speakers.
Okay, thank you. I think I would like, as the chair, Mr. Lipsmeyer, I'd like to apologize to you for, having you come here and making you think that the 4 recommendations that were made by our board, if those were done, would be sufficient, because obviously that's not the case. And I know that there is, the ACA now is in effect, and I have read it, and it is 200 pages, and it is very detailed. But that being said, I've also been in this community, and I also know that there are very big houses there, and they're on big pieces of property. So I will give that, that's what I substantiate it with. I will have to agree this time that these particular lots are very small, okay, for this size of house, for this percentage of coverage. I mean, let's just be honest, they are. The first one that I actually voted against the motion, I think there was enough ground there for that particular home. That's my opinion. You know, obviously we have other board members here. But I do agree that these two lots are small. And I believe what was stated by the residents, that another type home needs to be placed there. I know it's hard to build a new home without it looking like a new home. And I think that's almost a catch-22. You know, I'm a history teacher, 32 years. I'm very aware of what, you know, historic homes look like and why they look the way they do. And I also know there's homes in that community that are very nice. Okay, so in a way, it's really kind of double-edged to me. But I have to agree that in this particular situation, that this home is too large for this lot, and I would have to vote against it for that reason alone. If anyone else has any discussion at this time?
You have one question down there.
Donna, Ms. Gardner.
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman. I had a question. So in the ACA, and the Chairwoman referred to it, in the community where there are larger homes, how large are those lots?
I would ask staff to.
But potentially the individuals that drafted the ACA would be able to answer that, since they're here today.
Okay.
Would you like them to?
Yes.
We'd ask if you would mind telling us what size lots would be on the ACA, size as far as homes. I mean, I know there's homes there with over 2,000 square feet. So would you just kind of expand on the type of size lots that those homes are on?
Thank you. I don't have the document in front of me, but the average lot size in 10 miles is 1.1 acres. The size of those homes, I think we said the average size is like 1,500 square foot house. And I'm just going off of rote memory, y'all. I don't have the ACA in front of me. Yeah, some of them are larger.
Some of them are larger.
Yes, some of them are larger.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, that's my understanding. And are we talking about on the larger acreage that there are some properties over 2,000 square feet? Thank you. That's what
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
But from the ACA, I made notes. The typical house ranges from 978 to 1,496 square feet. The typical houses are one story of living space with 5 different styles. And this doesn't meet it. Another comment is when I drove out there, I found a trailer. I didn't find any houses that were the size or the style of what's being proposed. So I'll go back to what I think you've heard from the 10-mile residents and what our mission is, sir. We're trying to protect this community to keep it looking the same way it is now. And this doesn't do it.
Is there any other discussion before we take a vote? Yes, sir.
Point of order, there's no motion on the floor.
Okay, well, before we make a motion, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion to be made in this situation?
I'll move to deny this application.
Reason.
Specific reason.
The Secretary of Interior standards, it does not complement surrounding homes and neighborhood. And it doesn't, and C, it does not demonstrate consistency with prevailing patterns of existing lots, shapes, designs. It looks like it was designed by a developer than the typical house you find in 10 Mile. Thank you.
There's been a motion to deny the request. Is there a second? The motion has been made. Take the vote now.
Chair Millar,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner,
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan, Commissioner Walsh.
Nay.
Okay, the ayes have it.
Thank you. And I would like to just reiterate that in my particular vote, that I'm going by coverage. I just think this lot is too small for this particular home, and doesn't make sense to me, especially in a historic community. This is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any person with a substantial interest in the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission chooses to appeal the decision, they may do so at the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Such appeal shall be filed within 30 calendar days after today's date. The next agenda item is HIST-02-24-00106. Again, a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness. I believe this says Monica. Okay, Monica, welcome. Didn't want to say Emily if it wasn't correct. Thank you.
Good afternoon. This request is for a certificate of historic appropriateness for the installation of roof-mounted solar panels at 987 Theodore Road, TMS 614-00-00-394, a property within the 10-mile Community Historic District. Since the designation of the 10-mile community as a Charleston County Historic District, 16 applications for certificates of historic appropriateness have been received to date. The 10-mile community was designated as a historic district in June of 2022. In September of 2023, a zoning permit application was submitted for a 6.48 kilowatt photovoltaic solar panel roof installation. The applicant is proposing to mount solar panels to the roof of the existing single-family residence at 987 Theodore Road. This utility interactive photovoltaic system is grid-connected and designed to operate in parallel with and interconnected to the electric utility grid. When it comes to residential projects, photovoltaic systems can be broadly categorized by the presence or lack thereof of the electric utility grid. These systems are classified as either standalone or utility interactive. Here's the location of the subject property when looking at the county as a whole. This map shows the subject property's location off of Theodore Road in the 10-mile Community Historic District. The 10-mile community was recognized in the 2016 Charleston County Cultural Resources Survey update as a remnant freedmen community having significant social organization and settlement patterns. The subject property is zoned low-density residential. I'm sorry. Is this zone S3? It's zoned S3 and is the site of a 1,203 square foot single-family dwelling unit. The future land designation is urban suburban cultural community protection. Properties to the northeast, southeast, and south are also zoned S3 and contain single-family dwelling units. Properties to the west, north, and east are in the town of Mount Pleasant's jurisdiction, zoned R4 or CC, and contain single-family dwelling units or are vacant. The subject property is in the AE11 flood zone. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. These are photos of the subject property on Theodore Road. These are the adjacent properties at 985 and 989 Theodore Road. And these are the surrounding properties at 980, 982, and 984 Theodore Road. This site plan shows the building located on the parcel with the configuration of the solar panels on the roof. This plan shows a larger scale of the photovoltaic solar panel modules configured on the roof of the structure. The applicant did provide responses to all of the applicable approval criteria. Based on the applicant's responses, the approval criteria may have been satisfied. Therefore, staff recommends approval. And this meeting was noticed as required.
I appreciate your comprehensive survey. Is there anyone, I have a question that I would like to ask staff. And I apologize for not being a master yet in the ACA. My question, first of all, is there any mention in the ACA on solar panels? Any? Well, I have a question. Is there any mention in the ACA with solar panel?
She can go ahead and speak.
Yes, go ahead, Ms.
we had-
Askew, because you're first, I believe, anyway, to speak.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening again. Pearl Askew, 977 Gastonville Road. They, not to my knowledge, that there's no documentation, but these are some of the things that we would like to have as part of, being inclusive in the community to help save energy, if you will, We don't have an opposition to that, but it's a good question, but we don't have an opposition.
It makes sense to me that in some form or fashion, this would go against historic designate with the, prevailing culture and history. I mean, I understand, moving forward.
But I understand what you're saying as
Yeah.
well. But as far as the historical community and district, we know that changes will come. There will be changes. And for environmental purposes, this is a good one. That's how we're looking at it as a settlement community as a whole. A matter of fact, this is a relatively new process here, and we've worked diligently with Charleston County and staff, and I must admit that they have done the best job that they know how dealing with situations in the settlement community. And actually, it's actually different. But we know that certain things has to be different. We just, the clutteredness, we're not used to that based on our previous conversation. But as far as saving energy and helping with drainage and to improve things in these communities, settlement communities, then why not? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I totally agree. I think we've had other designations ask us to have solar panels added, if I'm not mistaken. Is that so? I think we had a couple in Edisto, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was Edisto.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that there was no mention in the actual document, or there was, just to have knowledge on that. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Comment. The historic district downtown allows solar panels as long as they're not visible from the street.
That's fine. Wasn't my question. I was questioning whether it was in the ACA.
I know.
But thank you.
I hear you, but where some people could have gone is, well, maybe we shouldn't allow solar panels because they don't fit what's there. But what I'm saying is the historic district downtown has been there for centuries, and they're allowing solar panels because they think they're good for the homeowners in the community. And they hide them so you can't see them from the street.
There was one other speaker.
Okay.
Craig Askew?
Craig Askew, 987 Gadsdenville Road, Owendale, South Carolina, 10-mile resident. I do not have a problem with solar panels. Thank you.
And just to confirm, Desmond Sherman, you did not check the box to speak so. Okay, I just want to make sure you signed it. Okay, that's it.
Okay, the case is now closed to public comment. Is there any discussion? Questions?
I just want to make a comment. I've noticed in some of the African American communities, solar panel is coming up, and I don't see where it's changing the character of the community. So I would support it.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
comment. I have solar panels on my home, and my summer bill ranges around $20 a month. So anybody who has enough sun in their roof, and she has 16 panels, I have 17 panels, or maybe she has 17 and 18. But in any event, the applicant's going to save a lot of money.
A misunderstanding, has this already been done? You said 16 to 17 compares.
I counted the number that.
Oh, the one that should have proposed, what they would propose to have done. Okay, I understand. I agree. I also have solar. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something in the ACA. That was my only question. Okay, at this time, is there a motion for the vote? Yes, ma'am?
I'd
Would you
like to
make a
motion for approval.
Okay, it need to be based on, or is it just a denial that has to have a recommendation, Joel?
I think you should give a reason for either approval or disapproval.
Okay.
Well, I'm approving it. I don't think it takes away from the character of the community, so it's appropriate.
Okay, appropriate.
Second.
Okay. There has been a motion and a second to approve the installation of the solar panels. At this time, we'll ask to have the vote taken.
Chair Millar,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner,
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
and Commissioner Walsh.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you. This is the final decision that has been made by the Historic Preservation Commission. Again, if any person with a substantial interest in the decision of this commission chooses to appeal the decision, they may do so to the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Such appeal should be made or filed within 30 calendar days after today's date. All right. The next agenda item is HIST-04-24-00107, a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness. And again, Monica, would you please discuss?
Yes. This request is for a certificate of historic appropriateness for the relocation of a previously approved ADA ramp at TMS 085-00-00-028, 7666 Point of Pines Road, also known as Hutchinson House, a property listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The Hutchinson House has had 6 recent applications for certificates of historic appropriateness, site plan review, variance requests, and zoning permits. The most recent application was a variance request from June 2023. The Hutchinson House is the oldest house on Edisto Island known to have been a part of the African American community during Reconstruction. It was listed on the National Register of Historic Places on May 5, 1987. The applicant is proposing to relocate the previously approved ADA ramp from the north side of the property to the east side of the house due to the possibility of a future archaeological dig being located at the rear of the house. Here is the location of the subject property when looking at the county as a whole. The subject property is zoned agricultural residential and contains an uninhabited single-family residence, the Hutchinson House. Adjacent properties are also zoned agricultural residential and are either undeveloped or contain residential uses. The future land use designation is agricultural residential, and the subject property is in the AE and shaded X flood zones. Here is an aerial view of the subject property. These photos are of the subject property, Hutchinson House. More photos of the subject property. Here are photos of the surrounding properties at 7654 and 7679 Point of Pines Road. This site plan shows the location of the Hutchinson House and the parking area on the parcel, as well as the proposed ADA ramp layout on the right side of the structure. These floor plans show the location of the approved ADA ramp in the red box on the left and the proposed location of the ramp on the right clouded in red. The next slides show the Hutchinson House elevations with the location of the proposed ADA ramp clouded in red. Here's the front elevation. This is the rear elevation. Here's the right elevation showing the relocation of the ADA ramp. And this is the left elevation. The applicant did provide responses to all of the applicable approval criteria. Based on the applicant's responses, the approval criteria may have been satisfied. Therefore, staff recommends approval. This meeting was noticed as required.
Okay, thank you, Monica. We appreciate your comprehensive report. Oh, this is exciting. History teacher, I'm just going crazy here. Are there any questions from staff for the commission? Are there any questions for staff from the commission? I think we're all excited about this. I've got property on Edisto Island and right around the corner, and it's just such a beautiful thing to see how it's just continues to be improved. At this point, I think we have public comment.
Yep, John Giroux and Sarah Clark. Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't check the box to speak.
That's okay.
Would you like to speak? Because we're all excited about hearing this.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm the Executive Director, John Giroux of the Edisto Island Open Land Trust.
Awesome.
I live at 9123 Lottie Pope Road on Edisto. And we love your excitement. We are as well. And Sarah came on board as our new director in September of 2023. And this was really her idea because she's an archaeologist. And she recognized the significance of the archaeological integrity of the rear of the house. So I submitted pretty quickly and said, you're right, let's definitely readjust this ramp and move it to the side. So that's why we're here today. But she can share with you maybe a couple of quick things about the archaeology on the back of the house that would be of interest to this decision. Thank you.
Could you just give your name and your address, please?
Sure. I'm Sarah Stroud Clark. My address is 9 Weston Avenue, Charleston, 294. Okay. So, yes, as John said, I have worked in the preservation field for 26 years, mostly as a historical archaeologist. And I've come to this project, and the rear of the Hutchinson House is the area in which the family historically made additions to the house over time. And so I immediately questioned why the ADA ramp had been put in that location, because once you put a ramp there, you're essentially going to impact any previously built additions. And so there's a lot to discover in the future in that area, and the east side of the house or the right side of the house where we have moved the ramp to did not have any structures, and so it's just a more well-suited location.
So this would be advantageous also for the person on the ramp. I mean, it would limit them in getting in and out of the house to see.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's, well, exciting. What a great job you have.
Yeah, I'm very
I know,
excited.
wow. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Thank you for your time. Oh, so I'm sorry.
I'd love to know what kinds of things you find when you dig.
Oh, well, I could give you a lecture.
Probably love that lecture.
We've been finding so many artifacts related to the family. It's very
Just
exciting.
personal items or just day-to-day items that you're talking
yes,
about?
personal day-to-day. We found some interesting items related to horse history. We know that Henry Hutchinson, the builder of the house, had many horses. We have photographic evidence, and this winter we found part of a horse harness that we have photographic evidence for. We found advertised horse colic cure bottles. So really interesting, just talking about animal husbandry there, and then just, an array of personal objects that, would have been used by the Hutchinson family over time.
How far do you have to dig just to get to that type of, not very far?
Not very far at all. basically every time it rains, artifacts are coming.
Another
to the
reason why I love
surface.
living out there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's every day is history day.
It's
Yeah.
a pretty rich archaeological site.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Sure.
For your time. All right. This case is now closed to public comment. Is there a motion to, in a second at this time?
So move. I move that the request be approved based on the appropriateness and also to protect future archaeological digs.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to have this approved on the premise of, definitely on the future of historical digs and just the opportunity to have such a fabulous piece of history. We now have the vote.
All right, Chair Millar,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner,
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell, Commissioner Sullivan, Commissioner Walsh.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you. This is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any person with a substantial interest in the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission chooses to appeal the decision, they may do so to the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Such appeal shall be filed within 30 calendar days after today's vote, or today's date. Thank you. All right, I believe this is our last item on the agenda as far as historic appropriateness certificates. This is HIST-04-24-00108, a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness, and Emily's back. Okay, Emily, please discuss.
Thank you very much. So this is a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness to repair an existing single-family dwelling unit, demolish existing accessory structures, and construct a new detached garage on TMS 334-10-00056, which is within the B Field Community Historic District. A home occupation permit was issued for this parcel in 2020, and in January of this year, an interior demo permit for the drywall and flooring was issued. Since the designation of the B Field community as a Charleston County Historic District, only one CHA application within the district has been processed prior to today's request. The applicant is proposing the following improvements to the existing single-family home: roof shingle replacement and necessary wood rot repairs, along with demolishing 2 rear lean-tos that were added onto the home. And the applicant is also proposing to construct a 1,200 square foot detached garage. Here's the location of the property when we're looking at the county overall. This map shows the Beefield Community Historic District with the location of the subject property along Folly Road. The Beefield community is located on the southeast side of James Island and is included within a larger African-American settlement community known as Grimble Farms. The area is a significant source of Civil War history. The subject property is zoned neighborhood commercial within the neighborhood preservation area of the Folly Road Overlay Zoning District and contains a single-family dwelling unit. The future land use designation is also neighborhood commercial. Surrounding properties to the north, south, and west are also zoned neighborhood commercial within the neighborhood preservation area of the Folly Road Overlay Zoning District and contain either single-family dwelling units or are undeveloped. The property to the east across Folly Road is also zoned neighborhood commercial within the neighborhood preservation area of the Folly Road Overlay Zoning District and contains a single-family dwelling unit. The subject property is in the AE10 flood zone. Here's an aerial view of the subject parcel. These are photos of the subject parcel along Folly and also of neighboring properties along Folly Road. Here is the proposed site plan, which shows the existing single-family dwelling unit, as well as the proposed lean-tos at the rear of the home that are proposing to be demolished. Additionally, you can see the new detached garage to the right of the home. The proposed new detached garage is 1,200 square feet. Here is the front and rear elevations of the proposed detached garage and the side elevation. And the applicant did provide responses to all of the applicable approval criteria. And based on the applicant's responses, the applicable approval criteria may have been satisfied. Therefore, staff recommends approval with the following condition. Ensure that no additional runoff from the subject property onto adjacent properties will occur through the utilization of gutters, French drains, swales, etc. And we did notice this meeting as required. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. All right, any questions for staff? For
Could
commission?
could someone explain the zoning that we just heard a little bit more? This is not one that I know what it means, really.
It's zoned, oh, you mean the overlay part?
Well, that plus neighborhood commercial zoning.
Yeah. The neighborhood commercial zoning is part of the Folly Road overlay that was done in conjunction with the city of Folly Beach, town of James Island, city of Charleston, and Charleston County. And basically, the Folly Road corridor was broken up or designated with different areas. And in this particular area, this was neighborhood commercial, which has a very specific list of uses that can occur in that, if you're designated neighborhood commercial here. It's, and for as an example, further up Folly, near Camp and Folly, it's more of a commercial core area, and then down lower is more of a like a preservation area down further in the core.
So could commercial activity be carried on?
Yes.
On this?
Yes.
Piece
That's
of
correct.
land then?
It's limited. It's not like our community commercial. It's not like what you'd see at the intersection in the commercial core area. But yes, there are some limited commercial uses that could occur here. Correct. If you go through the site plan review process and meet all the requirements. And if that's the case, this commission would see that.
So we're to understand there's no commercial interest at this point.
Correct.
Okay.
The applicant's here, but they didn't check to speak, so.
Okay, I just wanted to know if
Yes, yeah. I didn't want to make the same mistake.
Would you like to speak? Your name?
Brian Cruz.
Okay.
Is that correct, Brian?
That's right, yeah, Brian Cruz. Brian Cruz, 461 Fleming Road, James Island. I'm representing the owner. It's an investment. It was in disrepair, and the idea is to fix it up to make it used again as a residence.
Who is the owner of this property?
Fab Folly 1.
Okay, so it's a LLC.
Yeah.
My question is just, I'm more concerned about the garage. The home is a brick or sided home? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
It's a brick veneer.
Brick veneer. What's the material for this particular garage? I know you said it's a 1,200 square foot
It's
garage,
proposed to be a hardy siding, lap siding.
hardy plank sided.
I think that's the idea.
Okay. That was just my main question, just trying to figure out how this is going to look with
Sure.
the home. If you said it's a brick veneer and then we've got a hardy plank type garage.
From Folly Road, looking at the home, to the right is a siding, a vinyl sided home, lap siding like that. Excuse me.
Okay.
And to the left is a vacant lot. It's a mix of all sorts of things right there.
So the 1,200 square foot garage is just personal for your vehicles,
Storage,
recreation?
Yeah, that's the idea.
And what is the size of this particular lot? Are you aware of that?
I think it's just under a half acre. Is it right now?
Half acre.
And there is no historic nature to the home that exists there, is that correct?
No, it's a 60s ranch. From my understanding, Emily.
Yes, ma'am.
Two questions. Why is the proposed garage detached?
I don't know the answer to that question. I
Because
didn't design it.
most garages are attached.
That's when they're first built, yeah.
Sure. I don't know the answer to that.
And my second question is, why is it so large? Because that's pretty darn large for a garage. And it makes me suspect that it's going to be used for something other than an automobile.
I can't answer that either. I think the idea is that they could rent it and the renter could have storage. And I think they decided that you could fit that size there. I don't know the answer to that either. The use hasn't been figured out besides storage, I think.
Well, we've turned down applications before that had the potential of being used, rented out, used for something else.
I think that's, the point was made just a minute ago, that if it was going to be used for any kind of commercial purpose, whether it's limited or not, correct me if I'm wrong, Joel, that this has to come back in front of our board, our commission. Is that correct?
Yes. To clarify, if whatever's being proposed requires site plan review approval through our site plan review process, then it would come to this board as well. I think this is the first time we've heard about it being used for storage of for somebody else.
I don't think that's what the applicant intended.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Okay.
no, not for someone else.
Oh, okay,
Just as
gotcha.
part of the
Themselves.
rental.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
That scared me for a minute.
No, I think that it's an investment property that's in bad, it's in bad shape, and I think the idea is to fix it up and be able to rent it out.
Are there any other dwellings on this property other than the house and, is it just the home and then the garage that they're wanting to build?
There is a building that encroaches a little bit on the back, but it's not on their property.
Okay, I see that.
I do know that when it was listed for sale, it said it included that, along with some property behind, but I think the original septic field for this existing house is even in that property behind, but it didn't, that property or that building behind is not on this property, I guess.
Are they going to repair this house? Is this house going to be renovated?
Yes.
Okay,
That's
so
the idea.
what's the footprint on this house? Is this looks like about a 1,600 square foot home?
I think it's just shy of 1,800.
18?
Yeah.
So basically, the garage is almost as big as the house.
Yes.
Okay. We said it's
one
I do
question.
have,
I'm sorry. Ms. Johnson, I'll let you go ahead and move. Ms. Purcell afterward, please.
Okay, I was just wondering, from staff, we haven't heard anything from the Beefield community in reference to this.
That is
Okay,
correct.
For or against, or nothing?
We did not receive any public input regarding this case.
Okay, okay, all right. Thank you.
So there were no letters of opposition?
We did not receive any letters of any kind.
Okay, Ms. Purcell?
would there be any issues in zoning if this were to be another dwelling? Proposed dwelling, because most detached garages would have 2 bays.
Right. You can have an accessory dwelling unit in
On this?
this.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe so, yes. Yeah. But that would, if there was going to be converted to a dwelling, that would come back. Yeah.
Any other comments or discussion of the applicant?
Oh, no, I have a comment to make, but it doesn't have to be while he's up there. This gentleman is up there. My comment is I'm going to vote against this because I'm very suspect that it's not attached and that it is so large for a garage.
I agree it's large, but I'm questioning how would you expect them to attach it? Just hook it onto the side of their house? I mean,
Most garages are
well, I know, but that's before you build the home. So that as part of the process of building the home. So this is after.
But we have looked at a lot of other properties where when I read the history of the house and then the houses next to it, and garages are attached after the fact.
Looks to me like this, looks like this particular home already had a garage or a carport. Looks like they turned it into a living space. That's
Yeah, I
just-
think on the left there was
Yeah.
a conversion at some
Yeah.
point along the way.
There was a garage there at one time, or a carport. Any other comments or discussion? All right, do I have a motion and a second?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Chairwoman Millar, I had a question. Are we allowed to make any recommendations? Because I think you did inquire in terms of what the house, what that was that brick or was that different? And can we ask whether or not this particular structure would also have the same materials as the house, just so it looks uniform from Folly Road? Is that something we can suggest?
I believe so. Am I correct that we can make, obviously we made recommendations earlier, in the previous decision. So I'm assuming so. So yes. Would that be based on the motion?
Yeah,
As far as-
however someone wants to make the motion.
Make the
or-
motion based on based on several recommendations, or maybe one recommendation?
Now, I think the question would be, would the board want to see what that would look like in an elevation before, or would you just allow staff to look at and make sure that it meets whatever recommendation that you require? It's up to the board. That's up to the commission.
So would this be something that would be deferred based on the recommendations that Ms. Gardner or others may have?
It could, I guess what I'm saying is that it could be, depending on what the recommendations are, or if it's a small thing or a simple thing and you want staff to review that whatever change that you're making, we can do it that way as well.
I just feel like I would like to see a little bit more what it's going to look. I don't want it to look mixed match from the road. Even if I were to propose, I want a little bit more information about what it's going to look like.
Sure, and I will say that, there was efforts made to keep the scale of the garage at the height of the house, and it is the same slope on the roof. So there was an effort made so it didn't seem dominant of the house, I guess.
Okay. And the materials would be the same on the house as the garage?
No, it's proposed to be lap siding like the picture here.
Okay.
So it would be different.
It would be different.
I don't think that you could match that brick, just having experience in that world. I don't think that you could match a brick from the 60s. We could certainly use brick. And you couldn't match the brick color, probably. Just throwing out a little bit of a... You could paint it all, I guess, or something to make it look the same, but it's hard to match brick.
Gotcha.
I believe it could have a veneer brick, similar look that might, agreeing with you, make it a little bit more copacetic to the area, as opposed to just a hardy plank in a brick veneer, which I think is pretty different.
Correct.
Before we move forward with that recommendation, I have a question about the picture with the front of the house. It's maybe another one besides the two that you have right there. It's a little closer up. My question is on where the garage will be. There's a little road, like a frontage road, on the right side of the home. Is that where the garage is going to be located? And is that obstructed from Folly Road or from the neighbor? Will it be set back where no one will see this? It's hard to visualize.
Essentially, the upper drive is, the garage is at the back of that existing driveway. So there's two existing drives.
Yeah.
Part of that driveway would get cut out to install that garage. Does that make sense?
Sort of. I think that's another reason why it'd be nice to have a little bit more detail on.
I agree.
So I'm not sure. Ms. Johnson, what is your comment, or how we could maybe elaborate on this?
I really would like to have some more time to look at this. Normally, I want to go with what the community has to say, and we don't hear anything from the community. And that's kind of strange to me. But if we can, defer it till the next meeting, I really would appreciate that, and that'll give me a little bit more time to go back and look at this.
Emily, if it comes back, would it have to skip the next meeting and come to the July? Depending on what
Most
changes.
probably, yes.
Yes.
So that would be a July meeting, which might give them a little, the extra time maybe to, just, again, I think we have to be very clear.
Yes.
That's kind of the point, I think, now, is just to be very clear about what it is we would like to see in July, if that's when this is going to come back. So,
Right.
since you made the motion, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Let's see. I would move to reconsider. What do they want to do? They want to. Just want to get the right language.
This is where I was looking at this picture, Brett. It's going to be over in that area right there.
Trying to find the slide that you had, Emily, with the proposed.
Oh, the one that's actually on the board right here, or not? A different one?
Yeah, I just wanted to cut for the motion. I was just trying to get the right language in terms of what they were proposing. I wanted to move to consider the applicant's proposal to. They wanted to remove. There were a couple things they wanted to do.
I think isn't our biggest challenge here, not so much the lean-tos coming
Okay.
down.
Is the
garage.
The garage. And the material. And to reconsider that at the July meeting, in terms of what the materials will be for the construction of the detached garage. And I think there was something else that was recommended. Yeah, and more information that would ensure that there wouldn't be any additional runoff from the subject property onto additional properties through the use of gutters, French drains, and swales, and feedback from any feedback from the Beefield community.
So, Emily, it's my understanding that you give notice, and so the Beefield community had opportunity to respond.
Yes,
Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So again, this will be put out again, so they will have secondary notice, so that I think is sufficient in that respect. But am I to understand, Ms. Gardner, that you would like to defer this?
Yes.
Okay. Defer this to the July meeting on the premise that we can hopefully get a little bit more information about the materials that will be used, in hopes that this could be a little bit more conducive to how the home looks like.
Second.
I mean, I'm just want to be clear that is that what you're
Yes.
asking?
Mm-hmm.
And I also would like to know the reasoning for the square footage. I mean, I think 1,200 square feet is, I know they say recreational vehicles, I get it, but that's huge. I mean, so just a little more thought maybe from the owner or the applicant on that. But mainly, we're questioning the materials.
Okay, will I leave here with a specific list of things that are required before the next meeting?
Yes, are you asking us, are we going to give you that?
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
just a little confused on all the things that need to change.
Should I amend my?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
so I'm clear.
We'll try to clear this up for you.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I want to understand exactly the amount of information that you want to see.
Sure.
And staff will make sure that you get the specifics after we concluded this.
Especially if there's
Is that
two
correct?
meetings to wait until this gets reviewed again.
It'd be the July.
For what seems like very minor material changes.
Well, I guess.
I'm sure the owner is happy to make it brick. I don't know that this amount of change justifies that many months of waiting. But
Well, it's not that we want to put it off 2 months, that's what we have to do based on a calendar. Am I correct? Okay, that's the only reasoning for the July. We already have a June agenda. Okay? So I'm going to ask Ms. Gardner again, please amend or your motion?
clarify my motion with a slight amendment.
Okay.
I would like to defer reconsideration of construction of the detached garage on this property until the next meeting, which would be July. And we'd like clarification on the materials that will be used on this detached garage. We'd like information on why the square footage would be as much as, I believe you said 1,200 square feet. We hope to get some feedback from the community, the Beefield community. And then there was one other I had. And to ensure that there's no additional runoff information regarding the runoff from the subject property onto adjacent properties using gutters, French drains, swales, et cetera.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yes.
Within those categories, clarification on materials doesn't sound like, I mean, we've clarified what we proposed as far as lap siding. It sounds like you want something different. So I don't want to come back in 2 months and say, yay, we want lap siding still.
Something that's
Sounds like we want something different.
Something that's going to be consistent. I understand that the current home that's on there is brick. If you're going to have something that's going to be complementary to that, just having it look mixed match from the road is concerning to me.
Okay. It just sounds like an opinion that I'd rather have some clarification. If you'd like it brick, we'll make it brick. I can't match the brick, but we can make it brick.
I would like to see what you propose at that point.
Again, remembering that it is an area that's historically designated, and that just, opens up a whole lot more,
Right.
as far
It's
as
my
what.
understanding that the building isn't historic, though. Right?
Well, but you're correct,
is.
Right.
but the area is.
Right. I get
Okay.
that.
So that's the point, just trying to make it, just like she said, more just comprehensive. So we're looking for something that's going to blend. Okay, so yes, brick.
We've got a yellow vinyl house, a 90s yellow vinyl house, a 60s brick ranch, a wooded lot, a trailer.
Sir, we're talking about this property,
Yeah,
okay?
okay.
This property right here, not that's already
I mean,
been.
to fit into the community, I mean, this was the idea.
It's not so much the community, we're trying to make it so that it works with this particular property.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and it's my understanding that there's been a motion made to defer this to the July, vote to the July meeting on the premise that we would like to have more information about the construction materials of the garage, the runoff potential on neighboring community or neighboring homes. Hopefully, we'll get feedback. If not, we followed the procedure for that from the community, and also just some information on square footage necessity. Okay, and again, it's not our, we're not trying to take away from what they want to do here. We just would like some clarification on the square footage part.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. I think it
Okay.
was given to an architect, and they said, here's what you can do.
Okay.
Within the limits of pervious, non-pervious, that kind of situation.
Okay. So we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah, there's a second.
I seconded.
You second, based on her amended. Okay.
Second.
Yes.
I'd just like to make sure we're not locked, when we come back in 2 months, that we're not locked into something based on what we're asking for. Because if something happens if somebody has an issue between now and then, we could have the same issue that we've had previously today. Oh, well, that's all we asked for, therefore we can't ask for anything more, therefore we have to approve it.
You're making your decision, Ms. Sullivan, on how you want to vote based on Ms. Gardner's motion and also on Ms. Jones on her second. And it my understanding that we're telling this gentleman these are the things that are important. And I think that if he brought these things back and he was, they were satisfactory, that's how we're making our judgment. But again, you're making your own decision at this point on her motion. And I have one last question, Joel. Does this have anything to do, can he take down the lean-tos? Is this all in one thing?
That's a demolition. So that he would need approval from this board for demolition.
Is that something that we could give him? Was that something that you would like to have, so at least get the demolition part done, if the board would agree to that, and then come back with just some?
I would, because it's a health hazard. People have been breaking in and staying there, and those lean-tos, I mean, they're dangerous. So
Yeah.
I would like to do that.
Okay.
You can break it up like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have two different motions at this time. Am I understanding that correctly?
So
Right now, you just have one, but you can, you can
Amend it?
amend it or make another motion separate for the, afterwards, separate for the lean-tos.
Okay,
Yeah.
well then, let's go ahead and, if it's okay, we could go ahead and vote on the first motion and then have that secondary motion to allow him to do the demolition? Is that, so that way Donna doesn't have to go and re-amend the
Right.
entire statement, which was pretty lengthy. So if we could we have a vote at this time just for the deferment of the,
Correct.
Motion to defer?
the motion to defer for the garage?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll make that.
All right, there's been a motion and a second for the deferment of the garage criteria. I'm going to go ahead and take that vote now.
Okay, Chair Millar,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner.
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell. Commissioner Sullivan.
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh.
Nay.
Okay, the ayes have it.
Okay. Before we finalize this particular item, would someone like to make a motion so that we can allow this gentleman to go ahead with the demolition part of the proposal?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. There's been a motion to allow the applicant to have demolition on the lean-tos, specifically on this project. Go ahead and take a vote on that, please.
Chair Millar,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones. Commissioner Gardner.
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell. Commissioner Sullivan. Commissioner Walsh.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, sir.
We've talked about the materials of the garage, which I don't really understand. We've talked about square footage of garage, which I sort of understand. The runoff portion, are we needing a plan of some variety? Or am I just saying that, yes, we're going to control the water and not let it go to the neighbors?
I think if you could demonstrate in the plan whether you use gutters or rain barrel or a swale between the garage, because the roof pitches over toward the neighboring property, so
Gotcha.
we want to make sure that's you need to demonstrate how that's going to be collected.
And we're only talking about the garage, not the house itself?
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
Okay.
It's
Just
like
because
French
big.
drain gutters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. You have any other questions?
No, I'm still a little confused about the material. I feel like it's subjective, and I don't really have a direction, but, you know, that's what it is.
Okay.
I wish someone would say, yes, Brian, I want brick. And I could go to my client and say they want brick.
I think the easiest way that I can maybe explain this, and again, I'm just speaking for myself, and there's plenty of other people that here can speak for themselves, but I just think that we're looking for something that's not just going to be stark, just going to show a stark difference between this particular 60s ranch, which you're right, is not historically designated, and a brand-new garage that is in a historic designated community. We're looking for something that's just comprehensive for this lot. So yes, if you think that brick would look better, then yeah, by all means, go brick veneer, whatever.
I mean, the effort to keep the head height or the soffit height matching the house and the slope of the roof was for that reason. And I don't know how we go further besides a brick. In my opinion, a brick would look worse because it's not going to be the same brick, but it's very subjective.
I agree. And so I guess at the end of the day, then you'll come back and say, hey, we weren't able to do that with the pitch of the roof, or we were, that's what we're asking, okay? So if you come back and say that's not able to be done, then that's what we'll know. We're just asking you, is there a possibility to make it so it's not so stark a contrast on the property?
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any person with a substantial interest in the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission chooses to appeal this decision, they may do so to the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Such appeal shall be filed within 30 calendar days after today's date. At this time, I know we're moving a little, late, but there has been a applicant, well, not that applicant, just someone has asked to speak in regards to Hamlin community, and it's been brought to my attention they would like the speaking time, and I would like to ask the board if you would allow this individual to come and speak. We'll give them a 2-minute time frame. Is that okay with y'all? All right. At this time, I would like to ask Ms. Myra Richardson to come forward, and she will speak about the Hamlin community. Ms. Richardson.
Thank you again for your time and your attention. Myra Richardson, 2755 Earl Johnson Lane, Mount Pleasant. I'm a member of the Hamlin community, and I know that you're with the historical protection. Hamlin is trying to get there, so I have to speak to Ms. Emily about all the requirements that we need to get to historically protected based on what Mr. Pryor with the moratorium. We are outside of that. So that's a question that we wanted to know if we are able to be a part of that without being historically protected as yet. And also what the Hamlin community is experiencing now is condemnation. We are in the county. Our properties are being set up under Mount Pleasant Waterworks to be condemned to repair sewer line. And we've asked questions. We received letters on March 20th. And April 12th, the condemnation letter was drafted to take these properties to repair the sewer line. We had requested a meeting in May 8th. They tried to postpone that meeting to today's date, but we went through with the meeting. We found out for the first time that they're planning on starting this project on June 1st of this year without even speaking to the residents, telling us anything. Question how we're going to park, how we're going to get to and from our homes. We were told we're going to have to park on the road and we won't be able to drive to and from our homes. And we have elderly people, disabled people, young families with young children in this area. We also asked the question, have anything been submitted where it comes down to EMS service as there's emergency that comes in? None of that has been shared with us. I've asked them to share it in paperwork, send it by email to outline the scope of the project. None of that has been shared with us. And for a project that's going to be started, so they say on June 1st, which is 72 days from the notification. We have been dealing with this situation from 2016 when they first started with maybe coming through. And it says it's a coincidence that the same time it happened when the developer was trying to develop Hamlin Acres, a planned development next door adjacent to Earl Johnson Lane. So we are here trying to find out information. We don't have that information, and the scope of this project we do not have. And we understand that sewer line is not the right sewer line that's on that lane, but the landowners on Earl Johnson Lane, if you're going to fix that line, have that line fixed for the residents on Earl Johnson Lane and not extend it to Hamlin Road. If there's properties on Hamlin Road that need sewer, then we're requesting that they run the sewer line on Hamlin Road so everybody that's on Hamlin Road will be able to get sewer, not just to an adjacent property that's coming in that wants to be a planned development. So I'm before you asking for help. I will be before County Council asking for help. And we just need information because at this point, the landowners cannot get the information that we're requesting. At this point, we are single parents, elderly people, disabled people. Attorney fees will be out the roof for us. And to have 72 days notice before you're planning on starting the project and also hire the contractor already, that does not give us much time. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your help in advance.
So, excuse me, before you leave or before you sit down, my thoughts are that this is totally a planning, and it's probably a lot of legal as well. So I
was going to suggest, I think Ms. Richardson, sorry, I'm terrible with names. Contact your council member.
Correct.
This body does not have any authority over anything that's not in a historic district or historic property. I would contact your county council member, and it sounds like you already, and continue doing what talking with the Mount Pleasant Waterworks and others about that. But this board's not going to be able to render any kind of help, I don't think, with something that's not in the historic district yet.
And thank you, I understand that, and that's part of one of the reason I stood up here, to definitely catch up with Ms. Emily, so we can get the packet, so we can start to be a part of this historic district, so we will be protected. So I just gave you a little follow-up of what we're dealing with, but you definitely know we need this packet together, and we need whatever meeting set up so we can get to where the other communities are, especially in the Mount Pleasant area, to be protected. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm curious, Emily, maybe you know this, maybe Joel, or maybe one of the other board members, if their application is in process, does that allow for any protection on any level?
I think that would be a question for Mark.
No, unfortunately, it does not. Then they will not become an official historic district until they go through the entire process of applying through planning, coming before you guys for a recommendation, and ultimately going to county council for an adoption.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that. So it has to be, the entire process has to be completed.
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but have you gone to the top at Mount Pleasant Waterworks? All the way to the president? You should. Okay, and just make sure you're going to the top. And do you know who your councilman? Okay, just make sure you go to the top. And do you know who your council member is?
Our councilman is Larry Kowalski. So
In Hamlin. Okay. That's who you want to talk to.
Thank you. Good luck with that. Trying to wrap it up, but we have the next agenda item is a short training session. Emily's on the newly adopted historic preservation ordinance, which I know we're all very excited and interested to see how this will move forward. So Emily, if you would go ahead with that presentation.
I hope it is the length that you were expecting.
Well,
So today's training session is focused on the newly adopted amendments to the Historic Preservation Ordinance. So on May 7th, County Council approved amendments to the ordinance. And now we'll start by discussing the procedures regarding designations of historic properties and historic districts. So applications to designate historic properties and districts will now require a list of contributing resources to be submitted with the rest of the required application documentation. The applicant shall provide the location and a description of each contributing resource. These contributing resources could include things like historic buildings, structures, sites, objects, or properties. So throughout the presentation today, you'll see important definitions interjected throughout as they apply to what we're talking about. So a contributing resource is now defined in the ordinance as a building, object, site, or structure in a historic district or on a historic property that contributes to the district or property's historic significance through location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, and association. And that brings us to the next defined term, which is setting, and that is defined as the surrounding environment of a resource, including other structures, site features, landscaping, and streets, which contribute to the aesthetic quality of the historic resource. There are also new decision procedures that have been codified into the ordinance. When rendering decisions on designation applications, the Commission shall now cite how each of the approval criterion have or have not been met. Additionally, when the Commission recommends approval of a designation application, the Commission shall list the contributing resources, and the Commission can also identify other supporting documentation, such as an area character appraisal. Utilizing the Phillips Community Historic District as an example, just wanted to show some contributing resources that have been identified in the National Register nomination. So this slide shows everything from historic buildings, such as the oldest known house in the community, to historic structures and objects, such as the Parker's Island Bridge and the old well for the schoolhouse, along with the existing foundation of the Phillips Schoolhouse. So it really can be a wide range of features that can be considered contributing resources. A new application type is now also included in the ordinance that would allow applicants to amend historic property or district designations in the following manners. 1, they can identify contributing resources. 2, they can submit additional supporting documentation like area character appraisals. And 3, they can add additional parcels to existing designations. All right, so it's been a buzzword today, but we've officially defined area character appraisal in our ordinance as a character assessment that is a document that describes the distinct appearance and feel of a settlement or an area. It communicates the key physical features and characteristics that combine to give a particular settlement or an area its local distinctiveness and unique identity. The City of Charleston's preservation plan does a great job at breaking down what an ACA is. So the city describes that ACAs broaden the view of preservation from specific buildings to the rich fabric of the surrounding community. They describe context or the elements that comprise and characterize a place, which includes scale, mass, and rhythm of structures, as well as streetscapes and landscape elements. They are not a roadmap for how a place should look, but rather a reflection of what exists and a guide for continuing established development patterns. You can also see on this slide some items that may be included within an ACA. They include things such as clearly written and mapped community boundaries, discussions of character-defining elements, and descriptions of potential threats to the integrity and/or character of the community. So, under this umbrella of the new application type, amendments to historic property and district designations, if the application is seeking to identify contributing resources, the following approval criteria must be met. 1, the resource is located within a designated historic district or on a historic property. 2, the resource contributes to the historic associations, historic architectural qualities, or archaeological values for which the designated historic property or historic district is significant. And 3, the resource retains enough of its historic physical features to convey its significance as a part of the designated historic property or district. For an application to add supporting documentation, such as an ACA, to an existing historic property or historic district designation, the following approval criteria must be met. 1, the documentation refers to the historic property or district. 2, the documentation contributes to the reason or significance of the designation. And 3, the documentation was verified by an appropriate third-party professional as determined by the Historic Preservation Officer. Applications that seek to add additional properties to existing historic properties or district designations must demonstrate that one or more of the approval criteria shown here have been met. And these are the same criteria that must be met for designation of historic properties or districts initially. Okay, so now transitioning into certificates of historic appropriateness applications. So CHAs are required in the following instances. 1, the issuance of most zoning permits. 2, site plan review for properties on or within 300 feet of historic properties or districts. 3, limited site plan review on historic properties or in historic districts. 4, demolition of contributing resources. And 5, clearing and grubbing. The following slide shows the application types that are exempt from the CHA requirements. So the following are exempt. 1, the proposed work is part of a project undertaken by Charleston County Public Works, and the subject properties do not contain identified contributing resources. 2, historic markers and signs. 3, existing communications towers where no changes to the lease area or equipment area are proposed. 4, Phase changes for existing legally permitted signs. 5, home occupations. 6, permits for tree removal that meet the requirements of the Charleston County Zoning and Land Development Regulations Ordinance. 7, use changes that do not require site plan review approval. 8, sweetgrass basket stands. 9, short-term rentals. 10, power poles where no alteration, modification, addition to, new construction, rehabilitation, relocation, or restoration is proposed. 11, temporary special events. 12, temporary uses and structures. And 13, proposed work that does not include changes to the architecture, site layout, or building size/configuration, and that is not located on a property containing a contributing resource as determined by the Historic Preservation Officer. So when rendering decisions on CHAs, the Commission shall describe how each of the approval criteria have or have not been met. The new ordinance also creates a process for certain CHA application types to be reviewed and approved at the staff level. These include 1, replacements of existing mobile homes where there are no expansions to the building footprint. 2, any exterior repairs that do not involve changing the appearance of structures. And 3, utilities and mechanical units, including but not limited to radio and TV receiving antennas or dishes, supply boxes, service meters, and HVAC equipment, along with any necessary screening. There are also brand new approval criteria for the CHA applications. So all of the following must be met for an application to be approved. 1, the proposed site improvements are compatible with the historic, cultural, and/or architectural character of the applicable historic property or historic district based on the National Register listing or designation by County Council. 2, the proposed site improvements do not decrease the historic integrity of properties containing identified contributing resources. And 3, any negative impacts to the applicable historic property or historic district have been minimized and mitigated. For historic districts that were designated without contributing resources, area character appraisals, or other similar documentation, the Commission shall evaluate those certificates of historic appropriateness based on the Commission consideration section of the ordinance, which we will go over in just one moment. First, though, I wanted to provide the definitions for historic integrity and negative impact. Historic integrity is the ability of a property to convey its historical associations or attributes, including location, design, setting, materials, workmanship, feeling, and association. Negative impact is defined as adversely changing the quality of the historical, architectural, or cultural significance of a resource or the characteristics that qualify the resource as historically important. Okay, so this section of the ordinance has been added to assist the Commission in their decision-making by providing items that the Commission shall consider when making their determinations. First, it discusses that the Commission shall consider the following when reviewing a CHA application. 1, general design. 2, character and appropriateness of design. 3, height, scale, and mass of the structure. And 4, the arrangement, texture, materials, and color of the structure in question, and the relation of such aspects, features, and elements to similar aspects, features, and elements of structures in its historic setting. The Commission is empowered to require the use of architectural techniques like building facade and mass modulations, or adjustments to the footprint of a proposed structure on the site to achieve appropriate form and proportion related to its setting. These techniques shall not unreasonably restrict the use of the site in light of its current zoning. The Commission shall also consider the areas of significance and contributing resources as outlined in any National Register listing as applicable. For locally designated historic properties and districts, the Commission shall consider the criteria under which Council approved the designation application and identify contributing resources. Additionally, the Commission shall consider the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties when reviewing applications for preservation, rehabilitation, restoration, or reconstruction. So this slide lists the items that the Commission shall consider when reviewing applications for demolition. Number 1, whether the historic structure is of architectural or historic significance that demolition would be contrary to the purpose of this ordinance. 2, whether a structure within a historic district contributes to the distinctive historic character of the district and the probable visual impact of its removal. 3, the extent to which the structure is of such unusual or uncommon design, texture, or materials that it could not be reproduced or be reproduced only with great difficulty and/or expense. 4, consideration shall be given to economic hardship or to deprivation of reasonable use of the property. 5, whether or not the demolition is necessary to facilitate a defined public purpose. 6, whether the request is a result of demolition by neglect. And 7, the structural soundness and integrity of the structure and the feasibility for its restoration or rehabilitation so as to allow for its reasonable use. Both demolition and demolition by neglect have been defined now in the ordinance. Demolition is to raze or destroy, whether entirely or in significant part, a historic building, structure, site, or object. Demolition includes the removal of a building, structure, or object from its site, the removal or destruction of the facade or surface, or the alteration to such an extent that repair is not feasible or is so costly so as to be prohibitive, rendering the property unfit for use. Demolition by neglect, however, is the willful neglect of the maintenance or repair of a building or structure that does not result from the property owner's financial inability to maintain or repair the property and may necessitate the demolition of the property. So CHAs for clearing and grubbing requests are now required in the following instances. 1, clearing and grubbing of 1 acre or more on historic properties or in historic districts. And 2, clearing and grubbing on historic properties or in historic districts of any size where there is a contributing resource on the subject property or an adjacent property. The applications must illustrate the proposed development for which the clearing and grubbing is requested. Additionally, a CHA is not required for clearing and grubbing applications associated with an approved development plan or violation. Applications requiring approval from both the Board of Zoning Appeals and the HPC will now require BZA approval prior to HPC approval. Also, applicants will now be able to present their projects to the Historic Preservation Commission for informal feedback prior to complete application submittal in the form of a conceptual plan workshop. We've also made changes to address heirs' property concerns. Property owner signatures will no longer be required for designations of historic property applications, certificate of historic appropriateness applications, and requests to postpone applications. Since the Commission shall consider the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties when reviewing applications for rehabilitation, restoration, reconstruction, and preservation, we have codified those federal recommendations into the Historic Preservation Ordinance. So just to give you a recap, preservation is the act or process of applying measures necessary to sustain the existing form, integrity, and materials of a historic property or historic district. So the key word here is existing, maintaining it as it is. A great local example of preservation is Drayton Hall, shown here. If you've had a chance to visit the house, you can see the effort that's been made to stabilize and protect the structure without extensive replacement of features or new construction. So the federal government recommends the following best management practices when reviewing preservation projects. A property will be used as it was historically or be given a new use that maximizes the retention of distinctive materials, features, spaces, and spatial relationships. Where treatment and use have not been identified, a property will be protected and, if necessary, stabilized until additional work may be undertaken. The historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The replacement of intact or repairable historic materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Each property will be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Work needed to stabilize, consolidate, and conserve existing historic materials and features will be physically and visually compatible, identifiable upon close inspection, and properly documented for future research. Changes to a property that have acquired significant Historic significance in their own right will be retained and preserved. Distinctive materials, features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property will also be preserved. The existing condition of historic features will be evaluated to determine the appropriate level of intervention needed. Where the severity of deterioration requires repair or limited replacement of a distinctive feature, the new material will match the old in composition, design, color, and texture. Chemical or physical treatments, if appropriate, will be undertaken using the gentlest means possible. Treatments that cause damage to historic materials will not be used, and archaeological resources will be protected and preserved in place. If such resources must be disturbed, mitigation measures will be undertaken. So moving on to rehabilitation. Rehabilitation is the process of returning a building or buildings to a state of utility through repair or alteration, which makes it possible in efficient contemporary use while preserving those portions and features of the buildings that are significant to its historic, architectural, and cultural values. So this is actually typically the most frequently seen type of project. An example we'll probably all be familiar with is the Boone Hall Gin House, because the commission approved the CHA for its rehabilitation. This project sought to retain as much historic material as possible while still making the building functional for its new use. So the federal government recommends the following best management practices for rehabilitation projects. A property will be used as it was historically or be given a new use that requires minimal change to its distinctive materials, features, spaces, and spatial relationships. The historic character of a property will be retained and preserved. The removal of distinctive materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize a property will be avoided. Each property will be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or elements from other historic properties, will not be undertaken. Changes to a property that have acquired historic significance in their own right will be retained and preserved. Additionally, distinctive materials, features, finishes, and new construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property will be preserved. Deteriorated historic features will be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature will match the old in design, color, texture, and where possible, materials. Replacement of missing features will be substantiated by documentary and physical evidence. Chemical or physical treatments, if appropriate, will be undertaken using the gentlest means possible. Treatments that cause damage to historic materials will not be used. Archaeological resources will be protected and preserved in place. If such resources must be disturbed, mitigation measures will be undertaken. New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic materials, features, and spatial relationships that characterize the property. The new work will be differentiated from the old and will be compatible with the historic materials, features, size, scale, and proportion, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment. New additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that, if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. Moving on to restoration. Restoration is the act or process of accurately depicting the form, features, and character of a designated property as it appeared at a particular period of time by means of the removal of features from other periods in its history and reconstruction of missing features from the restoration period. So a recent example of restoration locally is the Starlight Motor Inn in North Charleston. This project sought to bring back the look of the motel to its original mid-century form and features. The federal government recommends the following best management practices for restoration projects. Property will be used as it was historically or be given a new use that interprets the property and its restoration period. Materials and features from the restoration period will be retained and preserved. The removal of materials or alteration of features, spaces, and spatial relationships that characterize the period will not be undertaken. Each property will be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Work needed to stabilize, consolidate, and conserve materials and features from the restoration period will be physically and visually compatible, identifiable upon close inspection, and properly documented for future research. Materials, features, and spaces and finishes that characterize other historical periods will be documented prior to their alteration or removal. Distinctive materials, features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize the restoration period will be preserved. Deteriorated features from the restoration period will be repaired rather than replaced. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature will match the old in design, color, texture, and where possible, materials. Replacement of missing features from the restoration period will be substantiated by documentary and physical evidence. A false sense of history will not be created by adding conjectural features, such as features from other properties, or by combining features that never existed together historically. Chemical or physical treatments, if appropriate, will be undertaken using the gentlest means possible. Treatments that can cause damage to historic materials will not be used. Archaeological resources affected by a project will be protected and preserved in place. If such resources must be disturbed, mitigation measures will be undertaken, and designs that were never executed historically will not be constructed. Lastly, there is reconstruction, which is the act or process of depicting by means of new construction the form, features, and detailing of a non-surviving historic site, historic landscape, historic building, historic structure, or historic object for the purpose of replicating its appearance at a specific period in time and in its historic location. So a local example of reconstruction is a residential project at 32 South Battery on the peninsula. So you can see on the left that the home originally featured a third-story covered porch. Over time, you can see in the picture in the middle, the porch was removed. And utilizing historic photographs, the property owner chose to reconstruct the third-story porch to bring the house back to its original design. The federal government recommends the following best management practices for reconstruction projects. Reconstruction will be used to depict vanished or non-surviving portions of a property when documentary and physical evidence is available to permit the accurate reconstruction with minimal conjecture, and such reconstruction is essential to the public understanding of the property. Reconstruction of a landscape, building, structure, or object in its historic location will be preceded by a thorough archaeological investigation to identify and evaluate those features and artifacts which are essential to an accurate reconstruction. If such resources must be disturbed, mitigation measures will be undertaken. Reconstruction will include measures to preserve any remaining historic materials, features, and spatial relationships. Reconstruction will be based on the accurate duplication of historic features and elements substantiated by documentary or physical evidence, rather than on conjectural designs or the availability of different features from other historic properties. A reconstructed property will recreate the appearance of the non-surviving historic property in materials, design, color, and texture. A reconstruction will be clearly identified as a contemporary recreation, and designs that were never executed historically will not be constructed. Okay, lastly, we've made it to the definition section of the ordinance. So 2 definitions were amended, and they now read as follows. 1, certificate of historic appropriateness is the document that's issued by the commission or historic preservation officer, as applicable, certifying that the proposed actions are found to be acceptable pursuant to the requirements of this ordinance. And 2, historic district is a geographically definable area, urban or rural, which contains sites, buildings, structures, objects, or works of art united historically or aesthetically by plan or physical development, demonstrates cultural cohesiveness, or a combination thereof as designated pursuant to this ordinance. Additionally, as you've seen throughout the presentation, several new definitions were amended to the ordinance. So we've actually already discussed all of these definitions throughout the training today, with the exception of one, which is alteration. It is now defined as any construction or change of the exterior of a historic building, object, site, or structure that requires a zoning permit. This shall not include ordinary maintenance. Additionally, on May 7th, County Council voted to create an advisory role for the Historic Preservation Commission within subdivision plat application review. So this would apply to preliminary and minor subdivision plat applications on or within 300 feet of historic properties and districts, with the exception of the following application types. 1, subdivision plats submitted for the sole purposes of creating an easement, delineating OCRM critical line areas, and or delineating the locations of freshwater wetlands. 2, the combination or recombination of portions of previously platted lots where the total number of lots is not increased. 3, boundary plats. 4, property line adjustments where no new lots are created. And 5, subdivision plats that are the result of a court order. The HPC will evaluate the subdivision plat application for compliance with the cultural resources element of the comprehensive plan. Please note that the HPC's report shall be advisory and has no binding effect on the Planning Commission. And that is everything I have today. More than happy to take any questions. Thank you very much.
Will we get a copy of this presentation?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And as soon as we have a final clean version of the ordinance, we will, of course, be sending that out to you all as well.
Emily, thank you very much. That was very well done. I appreciate
thank
that.
you.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, I think.
Ms. Gardner?
In one of the slides, you said something about our decisions, whether the PCA.
Yes.
Approved something before.
Yes.
What's the difference between now?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is actually a complete opposite of what it was previously. Previously, the ordinance stated that HPC review and approval had to occur prior to placement on a Board of Zoning Appeals agenda. When we were thinking that through, it actually seemed a little bit backwards because the Board of Zoning Appeals is the entity that can provide those reductions in setbacks and buffers. So it would make sense to have that approval in place first prior to us reviewing that application. Mm-hmm.
And as far as us still being the advisory role we still play is basically the same. I mean, we were an advisory role, even though it was a final decision is being made, it still can be overruled, correct?
Yeah, so it will no longer be a certificate of historic appropriateness application. So it will just be a subdivision plat report that's presented by staff. And then the commission will be able to advise based on the cultural resources element of the comprehensive plan whether or not the proposal is consistent. That request would then go in front of the Planning Commission for their final determination.
So we're advising the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission's making that final decision on the designation.
Commission members, that is correct. Subdivisions are under the purview of the Planning Commission pursuant to 629 in the Planning Act. But County Council has asked that you guys provide them some input on the cultural resource element of the comp plan. And so in order to best do that, to enable Planning Commission to make that decision, applications will come here. You guys will see the application, and you will also see some form of the cultural resource element side by side or however staff puts it together. And you will look at the request and comment, how the subdivision is or is not consistent with that element. And then that report will go to Planning Commission, so they will be able to see, here's the report on this specific element that council wants, and then they will make their determination about the subdivision at that time.
So there'll be no more voting on our end?
There won't be a vote for an approval or disapproval of a CHA.
Okay.
So basically, my understanding is that this group serves as an advisory board
For subdivision, but.
For the subdivision.
Right, the
Okay.
final
I mean,
decision
that's what
on
we're
that.
talking about right now, so yeah.
You'll still do all the normal other CHAs like you saw today.
Right.
Yeah, you'll still be doing that.
Okay, thank
Yes, ma'am.
No.
Right.
No, it's just
Yeah.
the subdivision part.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, you got here all that way, man. All you, no more voting. Well,
Here, but anyway, I thank you for that clarification.
Going back sort of to the beginning of what you presented in terms of the mechanisms of what we're going to do, and we now have to respond to each and every one of the criteria for approval or disapproval. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So are we going to be able to streamline this process some way, or
Oh, the big difference is there are only 3 criteria out there. Right. Before this amendment, there was
5, 6.
5, and they were kind of convoluted. So this is what you're looking at, these 3.
so we'll go through each one of these criteria
Correct.
on each
Correct.
designation.
Yeah, so commission members, the thought process was to make the approval criteria easier on both applicants and commission members. So now whenever you look at an application, you should just be asking yourself, is this compatible, with the area? Is it decreasing the integrity, of the property? And then have any negative impacts? Has the applicant done everything they can to mitigate that? And so if it's compatible, if it doesn't decrease the integrity, and there's been mitigation of damage, if there was any, it should be worthy of a CHA.
And if you're looking for an example of how that's done, our Board of Zoning Appeals is very good at it. They have different criteria, of course, because they see different applications, and they have like 6 or 7 criteria that they have to go through. So if you wanted, we could send you a link to a BZA meeting. You could just watch one of the cases where whenever they make a motion, they go through how they think each criterion is or is not being met. And that might be a good just example if you're looking for one. A link to our Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
I'd like
since they're
this.
broadcast.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. No problem. It's a great idea.
Because I think that will allow us to have a more of a guideline, but this to me still seems very subjective. I mean, it is more streamlined, amen, but it's still very subjective individually.
Yep. They have very different criteria, of course, but just to see the way they
I like
handle
that idea.
Yeah.
Thank you. So where is the clearing and grubbing and all this? That was in there. Yes, I want to make sure when it happened.
This was a request by a community member.
Community member?
Yeah, a historic district community member, that clearing and grubbing of 1 acre or more on historic properties come to the commission for a CHA.
But people don't come to us with applications about an acre. They're building on a third of an acre.
Well, if they're building something, then you will not see it because it's going to be part of an approved development plan. So that second one for clearing and grubbing of historic properties or on properties located in historic districts when the contributing resource or a subject, that's another one that you'll see. But what was I? There was a section, there it is. It's at the bottom of that. A CHA is not required for clearing and grubbing associated with an approved development plan or violation, which is different because violations are handled separately. So when you see, for example, if you all approved one of the house sites today that were early on in 10 Mile, if for some reason it was approved, the clearing and grubbing permit that's associated with that development plan would be also approved by default when you approve that house to be constructed.
And if they did,
There
go
were
ahead,
two
excuse me.
today where the property had already been cleared.
Right, they had been previously developed, correct. And then they got a demolition permit, I believe, for a mobile home.
Previously developed, you mean something else had been built on?
Yeah, there were some, that was being used for It was discussed in the history. It was being used for
Boat and RV storage.
boatyard storage, yeah, which,
Unpermitted.
yeah, which we actually told them to move their stuff, yeah. It was illegal. If that was wooded, if one of those sites were wooded, then they would not have to come in separately for a clearing and grubbing permit if they got approval to construct their house.
And of course, when the site plan comes in front of you all, you would see the location of the trees and things like that on the plan.
Right.
So if something comes to us and the trees are still going to be on it.
Yeah, the grand trees will be shown on the plan, yes, ma'am.
And if they do that ahead of time without our approval, they're going to.
Then it's a violation. Then we address that. And we address that separately because a violation is a violation. You can't undo the clearing. Right.
I get it.
Yeah.
But they don't have to pay too much for the violation.
Depends on, yeah, it could be quite a bit. If they cut down grand trees, it could be, it can be substantial. If it's a willful violation, yes.
I think next month we'll also be receiving some additional training.
Yeah, we'll send this out, and if you have questions about it, let us know. But we'll definitely, obviously, by the time we meet next month, we'll be sending out the clean version of the ordinance to everyone, so that if you have any questions from that, we can.
Yeah, and we will send around the cultural resources element of the comprehensive plan. That's going to be in front of County Council this Tuesday for third reading, so we just didn't want to send that out prior to potential amendments coming through.
I do have a question too. The part about the workshops, can you go into a little more detail?
Yeah, so applicants will now have the opportunity it's going to be our same filing deadlines for applications. So if they submit to us that they would like to have their proposal for a conceptual plan workshop, we'll place them on the agenda. And then they'll have the opportunity to get up and speak and present for informal feedback from the commission. Yeah, that's something that we've heard from the applicants that they were hoping to be able to do in the past. So prior to a formal application being submitted, no, for a certificate, well, it really could be for anything. I mean, if a historic district wants to come in, we're more envisioning for like a new construction. If somebody wanted some feedback prior to submitting a formal application, that they could come and present that. Yeah.
If they want to, is to do a workshop, if that's what they choose to do, yes. I don't think that's required if they're going to become a district, because the district requirements are very set as to what's needed.
But did I see something about they don't have to get X percentage of voters?
No, that was for the application for a CHA, to make an application if you're going to build something. In the previous ordinance, we had a requirement where the owner had to sign the application. And what we were finding out is it was detrimental to the heirs properties, folks that wanted to build something on heirs property, because for obvious reasons, by definition, they could not sign the application as the property owner in many cases.
Well, that'd be nice to have heirs properties commented in there so people understand the reasoning behind that.
Excuse me. Yeah, I think that as part of our staff report, if the application comes forward, that we can, if it's heirs property, we can make that statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You will be, did you mention, Emily, that they'll be seeing 4 subdivisions at their next meeting?
Not yet. That's
okay.
Yes, so 4 subdivisions
Yeah.
will be coming. Also, we're in this transition period where we've had applications that were submitted under the old ordinance. So we will still have applications next month that are to be reviewed under the old ordinance with the old approval criteria like we did today. No, because that will be no approval criteria. It's just an advisory. Oh, there will be 4 subdivisions next month, yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And you got your last hour of training.
Yeah,
so
that's
you're
it.
done. You're done for the year. Yay.
Gosh.